I am just elated to be here with you all this morning. I just want to tell you, I wouldn't have made it without that taco though. There's so much that I can relate to, and I'm going to try to be as brief, but I'll try to cover the subject as much as possible, and then I know you have some questions, and we'll mi tiempo, su tiempo, as far as I'm concerned. I can communicate through my emails or text messages or any phone calls or any visitations you might want to have in the future if you're interested in getting more involved in the area of the legislature. I started off in 1970, actually in public service, but before that I was a teacher here in Brownsville. 4 years. I started teaching at Central Junior High School, which no longer exists, there on Palm Boulevard and Elizabeth Street. I was a football, basketball, track coach, and then all of a sudden I pick up the Brownsville Herald and I see county offices up for grabs. That was the title of the newspaper article, front page. And I was on my coaching shorts and I was sitting back. My wife was making dinner for me and for us. And I said, "Honey, what should I run for?" And I said, "Oh, you're popular. They know you out on the golf course. You know, you've introduced me to countless numbers of people. Why don't you? Let me see. County judge? No. State judge? Well, I'm not a lawyer." And I went down, and then I went all the way down, and it said county treasurer. And I said, "You know, I'm pretty good at math. I had straight A's in math." There's a story behind that, but I said, "Why not?" So I announced the next morning, just like that. I made a decision just like that, and it was the right decision, but it was God's decision. I can tell you that right now, because I've had an incredible journey, and I think He wanted me to be where I am today, and He wanted me to do certain things along the way, and I was listening since then. I was 24 years old. So I went to my dad and I said, "Dad, what's your biggest advice for me? What should I do?" I mean, I'm stepping into the arena. My dad had worked at the county courthouse for many, many years in the sheriff's office. He was involved in public service. He knew how to treat people and what people wanted, etc. So I said, "Mijo, people don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care." And that was the basis of my service, my public service, my whole life. I want people to know that I truly care for them. And even though I've had my scuffles with my own party over issues that we don't agree with, and they really never came to my aid for any campaign, the people always rose, on the occasion of my campaign, elections and all. So I got a lot to be thankful, and that's you, the people who believe that I'm echoing your sentiments. You say, "That's what I want. He's doing what I'm for, so I'm going to support him." That's what politics is all about. But public service is a lot more complicated, and you got to really be devoted and committed, to doing what you have to do to show that you're a responsible person and that you want to identify with the public that you're representing. So I took off from there. I was a county treasurer, and I became president of the County Treasurer Association in 6 short years. I traveled 254 counties. I mean, I got to meet people in every corner of the state. And that was God's way of preparing me for the legislature a few years later, getting to know people. Then I served as the county commissioner, and something weird happened at the end of my first term. I did everything that you would want me to do. I didn't go out and fix people's driveways or work on their property, because that was illegal. But they asked me to. They told me the guy before me had done it. I said, "I don't want to hear about it. I can't do it." So after redistricting, when I used to just represent Brownsville, I was moved outside. I'm telling you this story because it's important for you to know where we've been here and what prepared me to go into the legislature. I lost my race in 1982. And I questioned God for the first time in my life. I said, why? I did everything that by the book, everything that was law and order. I followed, my dad's advice. I just wanted to do the best thing I could to show people that I was an honest person. And that's important in politics, it really is. A man or woman, you gotta be a man or woman of integrity, one that people take serious and one that people want to be involved with and establish relations with. So I lost, and then 4 years later, I found out what God's plan was for me. I ran for state representative and we won that race against an incumbent. I filed 62 bills while I was in the House from 1987 through 90, 4 years. And then in 91, I took over as senator, been there ever since. I filed 3,134 bills after that. So it's a monumental task, believe it or not. But my ability to choose the best employees and the best assistants has shown because we were very successful along the way, and I'm very proud of all my staff that have been with me. You can imagine how many people I've worked with over the years. Since then, it's been a joy, and I've been very proud of each one of them because they've moved on to other things and they've succeeded. But they learned a lot in that office when it came to public service and to providing the services, especially in the legislative process, which you want me to go into, and I will. The first question that came up was, by the way, this is the first time that I will not be on a ballot since 1970. Wow. This is the first year, and it kind of appears a little weird, right? but I'm happy at the same time. You get mixed emotion. I'm happy because I'm moving into something that's very special, very important to me, and I'll explain that to be able to do something before I move on completely. What is the Texas legislature? Well, it was your history, and it's just punch your computer. They'll tell you exactly when it started in the 1800s and how long we've come along. When it was established, it was kind of patterned after the national government or the federal government, the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Same thing in Texas. The executive branch, though, instead of being the president, the governor, the legislative branch, instead of being the Congress, where you have 435 representatives from throughout the country and 100 state senators, 2 from each state. In Texas, you have the House of Representatives, 150 members. Did everybody know that? 150 members. I was a state representative for Brownsville because the population that I was responsible for, when you divide 150 into the state's population, you get the number of people, men, women, and children that you're going to represent in a housing district. So my district was entirely inside the city limits of Brownsville, because Brownsville was the biggest entity, and it still is the biggest city in the valley. And in the Senate, you got 31 senators, a little bit more, I want to say relaxed. Instead of working with 149, you're working with 30, which it's a lot better and quite frankly a lot easier. Each one of us represents a million people now because of the state's population that's grown so much. When I went into the Senate in 1991, there was 23 Democrats and 8 Republicans. Today, there's 12 Democrats and 19 Republicans. things have changed. And I think it's been the issues that have surfaced that we've had to address, where people of Texas have really voiced their opinions about who they want to have them serve them, in these capacities. But I've met so many wonderful people from every corner of the state that have come to me, and the legislature is a very special place. I think it's a lot closer than U.S. the federal government's the federal government's closeness to people is what I'm trying to say, because they leave for such a long time. Here, I'm back on the weekend during the session, and by the way, we have legislative sessions on odd numbered years. So next year, 2023, legislative session, how long? It would be up there 140 days. But we're home in the weekends. Those of us that really want to not lose contact with the public and make sure that we're back to see our families and share on whatever we can during the weekend. But we are away and we miss a lot of things, obviously, during the course of the week that we're gone. I've been very fortunate. When I was in the House of Representatives, I picked up the phone and I called in 1989. I called a good friend of mine. His name was Bob Bullock. Does anybody remember Bob Bullock? He was the Comptroller of Public Accounts, and he had just read in the paper. He just announced to run for Lieutenant Governor. I was about to announce to run for the Senate, as a matter of fact. So I called him to congratulate him, and he said, I told him, Mr. Bullock, I want to be one of the first to let you know that I'm very supportive of your candidacy. You know me. He said, of course I know you, Eddie. Call me Bob. I said, no, sir, Mr. Bullock. You've earned a lot of my respect for the job you've done. I want to endorse you. I want to help you down in Cameron County. I'll be happy to be your coordinator. And we had a chat, and he says, and I said, I just want to be one of the first, sir. I won't take any more of your time. He said, I'll never forget. He said, I'll never forget it. And when Bob Bullock told you that, he meant it. And because years later, he reminded me. Actually, I had met Bob Bullock in 1973 at the Shrimp Boat restaurant in Brownsville. You all don't know where the Shrimp Boat was. It was owned by the Carrasco family. And he came down to announce his candidacy for state controller at the time. And the county judge had the blues, so he called me. I was the next countywide official that he liked, so he called me to go introduce him. That was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because he reminded me. The first fundraiser I go to see Bob Bullock, they're honoring him at a big hotel, and there's 400 people there. And I walk in, I go all the way around, I don't want to go through the crowd. And the newly elected state senator. And I come up behind him, and I swear to you, he had to have eyes on the back of his head. Because I was looking at him all the time, and he had not seen me. But I guess it was that warmth that he felt. He turned around and he said, Jan, that was his wife's name. This is Eddie, Lucio. He introduced me back in 1973, 1991 now. And at the Shrimp Boat restaurant in Brownsville, Texas. He was the county treasurer, right? Yeah, I was brilliant. And he didn't forget, because he gave me a spot in the finance committee, which you don't get when you start in the Senate for a second session. You just don't get appointed. He gave me a chairmanship. But the greatest thing he did in 1997 was something else. And I had passed a bill. The bill was the first medical school. We were affiliated with the Health Science Center in San Antonio, Texas. And I passed the bill, and I went to him. I said, Mr. Bullock, I need $32 million. What? $32 million. I heard you. What for? I said, well, I just passed. Thanks to you, you let me hear the bill on the floor. They controlled everything. He said, and it passed in the House. He didn't take it, but it passed in the House. And I says, I need to, what do you think? He says, go see John Mumford. John Mumford was the state senator from Lubbock, Texas. He was chair of the finance committee, and I respected that man. He was such a statesman, and when there was a debate, nobody could beat John Mumford. But I rushed. I mean, I was really walking fast down the hallways of the Capitol, and John Mumford was waiting for me outside his office, and I'm going to say something. I'm going to tell you what he said, word for word. How in the hell did you do that, Lucio? And I says, and you know what my response was? It must have been a phone call I made in 1989, from the floor of the House when I congratulated him, and that was going to support him. I said, it must have been a phone call. He says, what was that? Never mind. It's a long story. It's a long story. Things like that happen, okay? I need to share a story or two, because things like that happen and they have an impact, a positive impact for me, for us here in the Valley, right? But those are relationships that were established. How to engage with legislators, that's probably the most important thing. I've been on a flight and I ask people, because they introduce themselves, and I introduce myself, give them my card, and I says, oh, you're a senator. You say, yeah. Who's your senator? They don't know who their senator is. They'll name some congressman that served 20 years ago that he's no longer in office. No, you're legislators, because people are going to ask you. I sat at a table in San Antonio, Texas one time, and you think that all these business people right at the table, I was sitting like right there, and all these big business people. It was a business seminar. I asked each one of them who their state reps were. No one knew. You need to know who your state legislators. That was when I was in the House. You need to know who your state legislators are, because at one point you're going to want to engage in a conversation, write that person, and nowadays text. The latest technological advance in 1990. Can you tell me what it was? Yes.
In 1990?
1990. What was the latest technological advance in 1990?
The cell phone?
The what?
The cell phone? The big
No, ma'am.
cell phone?
No. Well, it was coming, but it wasn't out yet. The fax machine.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I used to get elected in 1990. The reason I bring that up is because we've come a long way technologically, and obviously we can communicate now, right? Through email, to text, to a lot of ways. And you can get everybody got my number, so the politicians can't hide, and don't let them hide. Don't let them hide. If you invite them to something like this and they don't come, don't give up. Try again and again until you get them here. They need to be accountable. We need to be accountable to you. We need to discuss and tell you why we voted in 2011. I won't mention his name, but there was one legislator who voted to cut public education $5.2 billion here. Did you know that? And another one, the same one, voted to cut healthcare $7.2 billion. 5.4 in education, 7.2 in healthcare. Who in the world would want to do that? Right? We're always saying we need more money for public ed, we need more money for healthcare, we need Medicaid expansion. Who in the world would want to do that? Well, he got away with it. No one ever questioned it, except me. But I can't go out because they're going to say, well, you're trying to hurt this guy. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm trying to make people accountable to what they must be doing for the future of our children, our communities. So those things happen. You need to engage with your legislators. You need to know who they are. This organization, I'm so proud of, Esme, and everyone that works with the chamber. You've raised the bar here, like never before. I've been around since there was a gentleman that ran it, great guy, but you know, it was just status quo. I never saw that bar go up like now. And it has to continue to go up. You need to reach for the stars. I love what you have up there, Despierta Brownsville. I wanted to point to it. That was amazing. Who decided on that? Who came up with the idea of Despierta Brownsville? Despierta, you know what that means? Wake up, you know. Look at other communities around you who have really gone up in stature and the things they've accomplished. Proactive communities, they're around here. Now, I'm not saying nothing's happened in Brownsville. I'm just saying so much more could have happened if you really step forward. But you need to take leadership, the leadership reins, and do something with that. You need to think outside the box. I had to throw that in because it's important for you to hear from me to let you know people are talking, people are looking, they're listening, they're seeing it, what's going around in their community, what's happening in their community. I live outside the city limits of Brownsville. I chose to move out to the country. I bought some acres and I live very happy. I sleep there, but I live here. This is my hometown. I want to see it prosper. I want to see the young people in this room, you know, years from now, if I'm able to make it another 10, 15 years, and say, you can tell me, I was there when you spoke to us in the chamber, and this is what's happened, sir, along the way. You can tell me that at Walmart, where I usually see my ex-students and everyone else that I don't recognize anymore. But we talk about the old days, and we talk about how far we've come. All right, what happens after the legislative session? You get working in the Senate and the House. I mean, my chief of staff can tell you, we have all kinds of activities, all kinds of requests. I continue to do my best to visit the schools, try to learn more about the needs in our education, our clinics and hospitals, our universities. I mean, I was very proud to carry the bill that created the University of Texas here in the Rio Grande Valley way back when we didn't have a university system. It's been a wonderful road, but what happens is we continue to work. We do interim studies, by the way. The committees that we serve on have interim studies where the lieutenant governor, in this case, or the speaker in the House, give the members of that committee things to study and prepare for next legislative session. We write reports on our findings. We travel sometimes to different communities around the state to hold these public hearings. So you don't stop working. The legislative session is not even 140 days. It's 140 days long, but it's reduced because you don't even start having hearings till late February, and you meet up there. January the 10th is when the new senator would take her oath of office, and that's the moment I step down. But nothing happens. There's committee assignments. There's all kinds of you try to orientations and all the things that happen before a legislative session. So you have a limited amount of time to pass these bills that we introduce. The bill is filed with the clerk of the Senate. It gets in the list and it's referred to committee, to the committee that the lieutenant governor feels that bill should go to. You ask the chairman of the committee or chairwoman of the committee to post it for a hearing or to see if you can speed up the process. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. It sure is nice to be a chair of a committee where you get your bills posted pretty quick. You know what I'm saying? And that's tenure. It happens with tenure and seniority, and all those things are important. So I pray and hope that our new legislators will be able to get into the flow of things. I told them that I was available to advise them in any way possible for the good of our communities. That's the way it should be. We're gonna leave a portfolio for the next senator that shows everything that we've done since last legislative session to prepare for next. There's a lot of things still that we want to accomplish. We're here because we want you. I want to, if I can, and I use the word in a very humble way for me, to motivate you. I want to inspire you and let you know that you're the key to success. You are. You're the one that drives us to do the things we do. And you do that by saying, Eddie, I'm depending on you. Yeah, I'm going to be hearing that all the time. And I better perform, right? If I want to show my face back in the community, or you know, if I run for re-election again, you know, and I'm not, but I mean, I'm talking about those that are, yeah, you better laugh because it's funny. But there's a lot of things involved here, folks, and it's real hard to cover it in a short period of time. You're the key to having our legislators perform. You tell them to reach across the aisle. That would be my best advice to you. What do I mean by reaching across the aisle? If you're a Democrat, work with the Republicans. If you're a Republican, work with the Democrats. Aren't you tired of what's happening in Washington? But there's always just, most of the things don't get done unless there's a presidential action. I am. And I don't want to see that happen. And that's been, quite frankly, the reason that we've succeeded, because we reached across the aisle. And the gentleman that today holds the president's post as president of the Senate is a good friend of mine. He's a good Christian man, a man that I was very happy to have him be my vice chair in the Committee on International Relations and Trade. I opened myself completely up to him. Here's a Tea Party Republican, right? I'm a Democrat, and I showed him everything that I could. I brought him along in fast space. He wanted to learn. He wanted me to pour myself out and give him all the advice I could, and I did. And it paid off, because when he became a powerful senator, he told the lieutenant governor, Governor, I want to be chairman of education, and I want Eddie Lucio to be my vice chair. And I said, God, thank you. You know why I said, God, thank you? Because I had two bills that I've been trying to get a hearing on from the one that was the chair of the education committee. She never gave them to me. She never gave me a hearing. He gave them to me like that. You know what they were? Expansion of the lunch program into a statewide breakfast program for our hungry children going to school. You think hungry children can learn? Wrong. They can't learn. The studies that are put out by the University of Texas show that hungry children cannot learn because they're worried about their stomach. Some of them get sick and wind up in the nurse's office. And they should be in the classroom, right? So that bill was so important to me, and I had spent session after session after session trying to convince people, hey, let's feed our hungry children. Luckily, we had a superintendent of schools here long ago that I ran into one time, and she was very nice to me. Esperanza Sendejas was her name. Some of you might remember her. She says, she was kidding with me. She says, what can I do for the senator today? I said, feed the children. And she did. She went back to her office and devised a universal feeding program. I've never been so proud of a leader in our education educational field es Esperanza Sendera. She was such an incredible lady and leader in our education field. She started feeding, and her feeding program, I digested it until we got it done all over the state, including Dallas, Texas, where the superintendent was a man by the name of Mike Moses, who later became the commissioner of education. He says, Lucio, I stole that woman that devised that it wasn't Esperanza, the other lady. Esperanza put a team together, and he took the team to Dallas to put that program together. How important is that? Why am I spending time talking to you about feeding hungry children? Because it was so important according to the University of Texas studies that were done. And then I had another bill. I had another one. And the second one was a great bill. What happens in the summertime to our hungry children? They don't eat. Why? Because they're not in school. So my bill says that any activities that were going on in our schools, any activities, when you open the schools up in the summertime and you see children in the playground or involved in activities, rest assured that my bill was a mandate that all cafeterias open and feed the children in that campus. And he passed it. And by the way, the vote was 4-4, a 9-member committee, 4-4. And I looked at him and he looked at me and says, what do you want me to do? I want you to vote for my bill. He says, the chair votes aye, Lucio's bill continues to the floor of the Senate. I'm sorry. Those are moments great moments that you have to understand are important to thousands of kids. Thousands. And I was so proud of Dan Patrick, Tea Party Republican. People hated. I didn't. I love Dan Patrick. And that's why Lucio Democrat endorsed him. You know the story now. I need to share that with you. There's no sin in that. To reach across and work with people on the other side of the aisle. That's the key to success. And that's what our representatives don't understand. Our party leaders want to just drive down our agenda and nothing else. It's not that. You have to have the art of compromise. You have to sometimes vote for things that are real thin, but you have to do it in order for you to accomplish your goals. I want to stop right here. There's so many other things I could share with you, but believe you me, you have to know your own colleagues on a first name basis. I already got calls. They want to have dinner with me. They want to pick my brain on certain issues. And I said, well, I don't have much of a brain, but whatever I have, it's yours. And those things are so important because they're going to remember this community. And I want them to remember this community because we have a lot to offer. We're so unique here. We're on the border and by the sea. No other county can say that. No other community but Brownsville can say that. We have an international airport. We have a world-class zoo. We have a university. We have a port of Brownsville that actually, you know why it's located where it's at? Because they ran out of money when they were constructing it. That port was supposed to come downtown Brownsville. It was supposed to be a port city, and it never got to happen. But those things are history. They happen for a reason, and all I can say is that I'm thankful to God. I'm thankful to you for having the opportunity to serve 48 years in public service, and I'll answer your questions now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me thank our Senate